Olive oil. The olive tree was first cultivated in the Mediterranean around 6,000 years ago, and olive oil is one of the oldest cooking fats in human history. The Minoans on Crete were among the first to press olives into oil and used it for food, medicine, cosmetics, and lamp fuel. By the time of the Roman Empire, this oil was often used as a form of currency, and the Romans spread olive farming across the empire. The word oil in English actually traces back to the Greek word for olive oil specifically, because of how prominent olive oil was in the Mediterranean world. When you press olives, the first thing that comes out, extracted purely through mechanical pressure without heat or chemicals, is the highest quality of oil. If that oil meets strict chemical benchmarks, specifically a free acidity of no more than 0.8% and passes sensory evaluation with no flavor defects, it earns the label extra virgin. If it clears a slightly looser bar up to 2% acidity and has minor flavor flaws, it's just virgin. These are the only two grades that are considered unrefined. Anything else labeled simply olive oil or light olive oil has been chemically refined to neutralize defects, which strips out most of the flavor and beneficial compounds in the process. Extra virgin olive oil has a flavor that varies widely depending on where the olives came from and where they were harvested. If the olives are picked early while still green, the oil is usually strong, a bit bitter, and kind of grassy. If the olives are picked later when they're fully ripe, the oil is smoother, softer, and more buttery. In Mediterranean cooking, olive oil is one of the most important ingredients. It's used in dishes like Italian sofrito, Spanish gazpacho, Greek horya tiki salad, and Lebanese fattoush. Butter. The discovery of butter was likely an accident. Early nomads carried milk in animal skin bags while traveling, and as it moved and shook, the fat clumped together and became butter, making it one of the earliest processed foods in human history. In ancient Ireland, butter was so valuable that people buried it in peat bogs to keep it fresh. The cold, low-oxygen environment preserved it for years, and even changed its flavor. In Hindu stories, the god Krishna is known as the butter thief because he loved stealing butter as a child. Interestingly, Romans largely rejected it in favor of olive oil since it was associated with the barbaric northern tribes. Butter is made of fat, water, and a small amount of milk solids. Most butter is about 80% fat, around 16% water, and a little protein and sugar from the milk. This is what gives it its creamy texture and rich taste. It also helps baked goods rise and taste better, but because it has water and milk solids, it burns pretty easily. If you heat butter too much, it starts to brown and then burn. That's why butter is best for low to medium heat cooking, like sautéing or finishing a dish, not for deep frying. Butter has been especially important in Western cooking, especially in France, where it's used in many classic sauces. Some people have trouble digesting it because of the milk proteins and sugar. It also spoils if left out too long. Even with that, good butter is still hard to beat. It has a very rich, slightly sweet flavor that's difficult to fully replace. Coconut oil. Coconut oil has been a fundamental part of life in Southeast Asia and the South Pacific for thousands of years. In Fiji and across the Polynesian islands, the coconut palm is called the tree of life because it provides people with food, water, medicine, and materials for building. Coconut oil is extracted from the dried meat of the coconut, called copra, or from fresh coconut meat depending on the method. The most valued form is virgin coconut oil, which is extracted from fresh coconut milk without the use of heat or chemicals. It has a distinctly tropical, sweet coconut aroma and a clean flavor that holds up in both cooking and baking. Refined coconut oil, made from dried copra, goes through deodorizing and bleaching processes that strip out most of that coconut flavor and smell, producing a more neutral oil that's preferred when you don't want coconut to be the dominant note in a dish. Coconut oil is different from most vegetable oils because it's mostly saturated fat. That makes it solid at room temperature and very stable. It's popular in keto and paleo diets today because it has medium-chain fats, mainly lauric acid, which the body uses for quick energy. The current scientific picture is still complicated, with different studies pointing in different directions, but most nutritionalists say it's fine in moderation. It's excellent for frying, for sautéing vegetables, and for baking as a butter substitute. In South Indian and Sri Lankan cooking, coconut oil is used in many traditional dishes, adding a subtle richness that's hard to replicate. In the Philippines, it's used to make a dish called pinakbet, frying up local vegetables with shrimp paste, and its aroma is essential to the result. In Western baking, it also became popular as a vegan substitute for butter. In Fiji, there's a legend that coconuts have eyes and choose who they fall on. Getting hit by one is said to bring 3 days of bad luck. Truffle oil. Truffle oil is supposed to taste like real truffles, but mostly oils don't have any actual truffles. It's usually just plain oil combined with a chemical that is found in truffles, but real truffles have hundreds of compounds that give them a deep, earthy flavor. Truffle oil often tastes one-dimensional and strong, sometimes even like gasoline or rubber. It got popular in the 1980s and was an easy way to make cheap food feel fancy, but chefs quickly started hating it. Anthony Bourdain said it's not food. Martha Stewart called it hideous and synthetic. Gordon Ramsay thinks it's ridiculous because the smell can overpower everything else on the plate. Real truffle oil does exist, but it's expensive and doesn't last long. It's made by soaking real truffle pieces in good oil, but the smell fades fast. Some high-end oils mix real truffles with a little synthetic flavor so the scent stays strong. To tell if an oil is real, look for the truffle's scientific name, like tuber melanosporum, and avoid labels that just say truffle flavor or truffle aroma. The debate over truffle oil even reached court in 2017, when a US company was sued for implying their oil had real truffles. DNA tests showed it was mostly synthetic. Despite this, people still love it on things like truffle fries and popcorn. Nut oils. The category of nut oils covers a wide range of distinct products, each one extracted from a different seed or nut and each carrying its own flavor and history. They're generally used as finishing oils or for low-heat cooking, since their delicate aromatic compounds break down quickly under high heat. Walnut oil is common in French cuisine, and was historically the everyday cooking fat in some regions, used the way olive oil is used in Provence or butter is used in Normandy. Cold-pressed walnut oil has a rich, deeply nutty, slightly bitter flavor with a dark amber color. It's exceptional in salad dressings, drizzled over cheese, or stirred into a simple pasta. Hazelnut oil comes mostly from France and Turkey, where hazelnut cultivation has been big for centuries. It's very aromatic, with a toasted, almost chocolate-adjacent quality that makes it remarkable on warm salads, desserts, and anything with chocolate or coffee. Like walnut oil, it's fragile and needs careful storage. Pumpkin seed oil from Austria and Slovenia is nearly black in the bottle and turns a deep, vivid green when spread thin over a light surface. It has an intensely nutty, almost roasted flavor and is used in Austrian cuisine as a finishing oil over everything from vanilla ice cream to potato salads. Macadamia nut oil comes from Hawaii and Australia, where macadamia trees were first cultivated commercially in the 19th century. The nut itself is native to Australia and was a traditional food source for Indigenous Australians. The oil is mild, with a gentle buttery flavor and a relatively high smoke point for a nut oil, making it one of the more versatile options for actual cooking rather than just finishing. Almond oil is similar in terms of mildness, and is used heavily in Middle Eastern and South Asian pastry traditions, as well as in French confectionery. Mustard oil. Mustard oil is a foundational cooking fat in South Asia. It has a sharp, spicy taste and a bright golden color. In the United States and Canada, it's technically not approved for culinary use and is sold only as a massage oil, though home cooks from South Asian communities use it anyway. The oil is pressed from mustard seeds, the same seeds used to make the condiment. India produces the majority of the world's mustard oil, and the practice of growing mustard and pressing it for oil goes back thousands of years in the subcontinent. This oil also plays a big role in culture and rituals. In Hindu and Sikh ceremonies, it's used to light lamps, symbolizing light over darkness. At weddings, it's used in pre-wedding rituals for blessing the couple. In cold North Indian winters, it's used for massages to warm the body and soothe joints. Raw mustard oil has a strong, sharp, almost nose-clearing pungency. This sharpness is actually the reason Western regulatory bodies have been hesitant about it. When the oil is heated, its sharpness mellows and transforms into a round, nutty, almost sweet richness. Indian cooks often heat the oil to its smoke point before adding other ingredients, deliberately moderating that raw bite. The smoke point is around 480 degrees Fahrenheit, making it one of the more heat-stable cooking oils available. Canola oil. Canola oil is actually a pretty modern invention. It started as a rapeseed, a plant grown for thousands of years in Asia and Europe. Back then, it was used for lamps because the oil was too bitter and even a bit toxic to eat. During World War II, rapeseed oil became really important. The navies used to lubricate ship engines because it stuck to metal even with steam and water. After the war, ships switched to diesel and rapeseed wasn't needed anymore. But in the 1960s and 70s, Canadian researchers bred a new kind of rapeseed that was safe to eat. And to set it apart from the old rapeseed, they called it canola, short for Canadian oil. Canola oil became one of the most widely consumed cooking oils in the world over the following decades. The oil is nearly flavorless and odorless, which is a big part of its commercial strength. It doesn't impose any character on a dish, making it a neutral background for any flavor. Its smoke point is around 400 degrees Fahrenheit, well suited for most cooking applications including stir-frying, deep frying, and baking. It's relatively inexpensive to produce, which is why it became the default in commercial food production. Nutritionally, canola oil has less saturated fat than most oils, and a pretty good balance of omega-6 and omega-3 fats. Most canola oils in stores is heavily processed and sometimes partially hydrogenated, which isn't ideal. But cold-pressed or expeller-pressed versions are much less refined. It's not fancy and some people don't like it, but it gets the job done in the kitchen. Tallow. Tallow is rendered beef fat, and for most of human history, it was one of the most important cooking fats in the world. Before vegetable oils became cheap and widely available in the 20th century, frying in beef tallow was the norm across much of Europe, North America, and beyond. It gives food a rich, beefy flavor and lasts a long time and can be reused more than vegetable oil, which made it cheap and practical for restaurants. Tallow is made by slowly melting raw beef fat, typically from around the kidneys where the fat is highest quality, straining out impurities and allowing it to solidify. The result is a firm, white fat with a very mild, savory, beefy smell. It handles high heat frying exceptionally well and can be stored at room temperature for long periods without going rancid. It was famously used in McDonald's fries until 1990, before suppliers could afford pure vegetable oils. People often say the fries back then were crispier and more buttery since tallow was used. Interest in tallow has grown in recent years, and high-quality grass-fed beef tallow is now sold as a specialty cooking fat by a growing number of producers. Restaurants specializing in traditional steakhouse cooking or British-style pubs and chippies never stop using it. Cottonseed oil. This one is essentially the first big industrial seed oil and a large part of the early American processed food industry. In the 1800s, cotton was grown mainly for its fiber, and the seeds were considered waste, piling up after the cotton was ginned. Eventually, processors realized they could press the seeds for oil instead of throwing them away. American cottonseed oil production grew quickly during the 19th century, but the raw oil contained a toxic compound called gossypol, which gave it an unpleasant color and taste. It had to be processed to be edible, which is why cottonseed oil became one of the first oils to go through industrial chemical refining. Around 1911, soap makers William Procter and James Gamble were looking for a cheaper alternative to animal fats. A German chemist named Edwin Kaiser introduced them to hydrogenation, a way to turn liquid vegetable oil into solid fat. This allowed P&G to make cottonseed oil look and feel just like lard, which they launched as Crisco, aggressively marketing it as a modern, clean, scientific alternative way to traditional animal fat, in one of the most successful campaigns in American food marketing history. What science didn't yet understand was that partial hydrogenation creates trans fats, which would later be identified as significantly more harmful to cardiovascular health than animal fats they replaced. Crisco later reformulated to remove trans fats, but by that point the damage of decades of heavy consumption had been done. Today, cottonseed oil is still widely used in commercial food production, particularly in packaged snacks, crackers, and fried products. Partly because it's cheap and partly because its flavor stability makes it good for frying applications where oil is used repeatedly at high temperatures. It has a mild neutral flavor and rarely appears as a standalone product in home kitchens anymore. Sesame oil. Sesame oil might be the oldest plant-derived cooking oil in the world. People in the Indus Valley Civilization grew it a lot and even traded it to Mesopotamia around 2500 BCE. In ancient Indian medicine, it was very special, known as Tala Raja, or the King of Oils. It was believed to calm the nervous system and keep the skin healthy. Light sesame oil, also called raw or untoasted sesame oil, is pressed from raw sesame seeds. It has a gentle neutral flavor with just a subtle hint of sesame and a relatively high smoke point around 410 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the cooking oil used in some South Asian and African cuisines. Toasted sesame oil, sometimes called dark or Asian sesame oil, is pressed from sesame seeds that have been roasted and is one of the most intensely aromatic oils that exist. It's dark amber in color and smells of concentrated roasted sesame. A single teaspoon can transform a dish. In Korean, Japanese, and Chinese cooking, it's used almost exclusively as a finishing oil and flavoring agent, added at the end of cooking or drizzled over a finished dish. Sesame seeds also contain natural antioxidants called sesamol and sesamin that help make the oil unusually stable and resistant to rancidity compared to other oils. Ghee. Ghee is a type of clarified butter that originated in the Indus Valley thousands of years ago. People needed a way to keep butter from going bad in hot weather, so they slowly cooked it. As the water evaporated and the milk solids separated and browned, what remained was a pure, long-lasting fat. The browning gives ghee its nutty, slightly caramel-like taste and its golden color. One big advantage it has over regular butter is that it can handle much higher heat. Butter burns fairly quickly, but ghee doesn't because the parts that burn have been removed. That makes it good for cooking things like meat, eggs, or vegetables at higher temperatures, while still getting a buttery flavor. It also has almost no lactose, so many people who are sensitive to dairy can still use it. It's extremely common across India, where it's also used in religious rituals and is a key ingredient in many dishes like dal, roti, and sweets. One traditional way of making it, called bologna, involves churning cultured butter by hand. Sunflower oil. The sunflower actually comes from North America. Indigenous peoples were using it as far back as 3000 BCE for food, oil, and even purple dye. When Spanish explorers brought it to Europe in the 1500s, people didn't eat it at first. They mostly grew it just because it looked nice in gardens. But things changed in Russia in the 1700s, when the Russian Orthodox Church had rules during Lent that banned most fats and oils. Sunflower wasn't on the list yet since it was new, so people started using sunflower oil instead. It quickly became popular, and by the 1800s, Russia had a big sunflower oil industry. Sunflower oil is popular because it has a mild taste, a light color, and can handle high heat when cooking. There are different types, but some are made to last longer and be a bit healthier. Refined sunflower oil is clear and doesn't smell like much, while unrefined oil is darker and has a richer flavor that's common in Eastern European food. To make this oil, the seeds are crushed and pressed, or sometimes processed with chemicals. What's left over is a high-protein material that's used as animal feed. In the late 1900s, sunflower oil became more popular as people tried to move away from animal fats, and today it's one of the most used cooking oils in the world, with countries like Ukraine and Russia producing a big share of it. In global commercial food production, it rivals canola as one of the dominating frying oils. Argan oil. This oil is produced exclusively from the nuts of the argan tree, a species that grows only in a specific region of the southwestern Morocco, primarily in the area between Agadir, Essaouira, and Taraudant. The argan tree has adapted to the harsh, semi-arid conditions of this region over thousands of years, and its cultivation is so tightly tied to Moroccan Berber culture that the argan forests of Morocco were designated a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1998. Originally, the oil was produced by Berber women using a labor-intensive hand process. The argan fruit is roughly the size of an olive, with a thick skin, fleshy pulp, and a hard nut inside. The nuts are cracked by hand, extracting the seeds, which are then cold-pressed to produce the oil. A single liter of argan oil requires around 30 kilograms of fruit and roughly 15 hours of labor. This is why argan oil is one of the most expensive edible oils in the world, often called liquid gold in Morocco. Cosmetic argan oil is produced from unroasted seeds and is used in skincare, hair care, and beauty products. It's light, odorless, and absorbs rapidly. Culinary argan oil is made from seeds that are lightly roasted before pressing, which produces a very different product. A warm amber oil with a rich, toasty, almost chocolatey flavor with notes of sesame and walnut. It's very robust, and a small amount adds a lot of depth to a dish. In Moroccan cuisine, culinary argan oil is used in a number of traditional preparations. Amlou is a thick paste made from argan oil, almonds, and honey, often compared to peanut butter, and eaten at breakfast spread on bread. It's also drizzled over couscous, used in salads, and added to various tagines. The flavor is powerful enough that it's generally used as a finishing oil rather than a cooking fat, since heat degrades its distinctive aromatic compounds. The production of argan oil has actually become economically life-changing for Berber women in the region. Cooperative groups formed over the past few decades have given thousands of rural women economic independence and access to markets they previously couldn't reach. The global boom in demand for argan oil, driven by both its culinary qualities and its cosmetic applications, has made this highly localized product into a significant international commodity.